On this week's episode of the Best of Johnston County Podcast, we have a special edition episode that we like to call Ask Jonathan Anything. And in this episode, our social media coordinator, Raina Birch, asked me, Jonathan Breeden, about the legal rights of unmarried couples when they separate. We talk about their rights to property. We talk about their rights to houses. We talk a little bit about what happens in a custody situation and child support when an unmarried couple separates. And we also talk about why you should have a cohabitation agreement if you're going to be living together out of wedlock and you're going to be having any kind of significant assets whatsoever. So it would determine what happens if and when you were to separate in the future. So if you've been in a situation where you've been living together with somebody out of wedlock, or you know somebody that is, I think you will find this episode educational and entertaining, as we had a good time recording it. So listen in.
Welcome to another episode of Best of Johnston County, brought to you by Breeden Law Office. Our host, Jonathan Breeden, an experienced family lawyer with a deep connection to the community, is ready to take you on a journey through the area that he has called home for over 20 years. Whether it's a deep dive into the love locals have for the county or unraveling the complexities of family law, Best of Johnston County presents an authentic slice of this unique community.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Best of Johnston County Podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Breeden. And on today's episode, we're going to have a special edition episode that we call Ask Jonathan Anything, where our social media coordinator, Raina Birch, is going to ask me, Jonathan Breeden, questions about the legal rights of unmarried couples. But before we do that, I would like to ask you to like, follow, and subscribe to this podcast wherever you're hearing it, whether it be on Apple iTunes, Spotify, LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, or any of the other social media channels of the Best of Johnston County Podcast. The Best Johnston County Podcast comes out every single Monday and has now for almost 2 years. So go back and listen to some of our previous episodes with lots of interesting community members, including County Commissioner Butch Lauder, the County Parks and Rec Director Adrian O'Neill, now Congressman Brad Knott. We've had a lot of interesting people, and if you love Johnston County as much as I do, this is the podcast for you. And on most episodes, I, Jonathan Breeden, interview interesting community members, but every once in a while we do one of these special different episodes where I answer questions that we get here about family law, which is what we do here at the Breeden Law Office. Welcome, Raina.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, doing good.
All right.
This will be interesting. We could do 10 episodes on this, and we
I'm
probably
sure we
will, as podcasts have to keep coming out every week.
Yes, right. So most of the podcast episodes that we've done before this, we've talked about obviously divorces, married couples, property separation, and all of that. But as we all know, marriage isn't what it used to be. It's not required so much anymore. So there's a lot of couples out there who live together and never actually get married.
That is true.
So first question is, what legal rights do unmarried couples have when they separate?
Well, they have the legal rights to what they own.
Okay.
And that's about it in North Carolina. North Carolina does not recognize common law marriage. Some states, if you live together and hold yourself out as a married couple for 7 years, you are then considered married. I think they have that in South Carolina. I think they have that in Colorado. We do not have common law marriage in North Carolina. The only way to be married in North Carolina is to actually go get a marriage license at your county register of deeds office, get married in front of a minister or justice of the peace or somebody like that with vows and with a couple witnesses, right?
Yep.
I mean,
Yes.
you know, and you get married, go to the courthouse, get married tomorrow.
Very traditional, yes.
Right. So, but no, they have the rights to what they own. So their clothing, their property, if they bought a couch, if they bought a bed, that kind of stuff. If they are on the deed to the house and they both are on the deed, then they're a half owner of the house they live in.
Yep.
You know, so the main thing is the marital laws and the sort of community property of everything that the marriage amasses belongs to both of you, regardless of the title, regardless of how it's titled, does not apply in an unmarried situation.
Got it.
Okay, so if you and I are married and you own a car in your name, I'm half owner of that car if you bought that car during the marriage because you got it during the marriage,
Yes.
even though it's titled in your name solely. In a situation where they're not married, it's all about title. It's no different than you and I own it and we're just friends and have been friends for a couple of years, or you and I make it an investment somewhere
Yep.
in a piece of property or whatever, we are, if we're both on the deed, we're joint tenants. And then there's, we can talk about real property law and stuff like that. But the trick is, if you're both on the deed to the house, one side cannot go and evict the other side. There is no lease. And even if only one person's name is on the deed to the house, if the boyfriend or the girlfriend are living there and there is not a lease and you break up and they won't leave, you can't really go evict them with a magistrate because there was no lease for them to be there.
For them to break.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and if you don't have domestic violence, domestic violence protective orders and all that, but it is a unique situation that you run into in these situations. And, if you're joint tenants and you're both on the deed, and you don't agree to sell it, then the joint tenant's only option would be to try to force a partition by the clerk of court, where you would file a petition to partition with the clerk of court in the county where the property is located. And the county clerk of court would send somebody out to see if the property can be equally divided. If it's a house, it cannot be.
No.
And if they cannot equally divide it, then the clerk of court will order the house sold on the courthouse steps. Literally, they do it every day when I'm at the courthouse.
Oh, wow.
They're always selling houses.
Who knew?
Right. And they're taking bids, just like
an auction?
Like an auction. That's exactly right.
Wow.
So now not every house gets bid on because you can only buy the house if you can pay off the lien holder. So you got to bid more than the mortgage in order to get it, because you can't get a clear title otherwise. Yeah. So,
and is it like sight unseen? Like you don't know?
Sometimes
you don't know what you're buying?
Sometimes you don't know.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So you can look it up. You can drive by it. You can see what permits got pulled. Some smart buyers go knock on the door and ask people if they can look around, and they'll let them.
Yeah.
So, there's different things about that, but you do not have rights in anything. Basically, long and short, if you're unmarried, you don't have rights in anything that your name is not on.
Got it.
And so you need to keep that in mind. And, and I don't care if you spent $5,000 of your money putting in a new floor in his house. That's his house.
You're not getting that
right
back.
If your name's not on that title.
Yeah. So would you recommend everybody, no matter how long they've been in a relationship, keep receipts? Keep your receipts of like the couches and the...
probably not a bad idea, if you're interested in the furniture and being able to take it. And most couples, when they're living together, they know who bought what. And now sometimes they commingle their money, and they share responsibility. And so that gets a little more confusing. But you can't just go to domestic court and have the court divide up the couch and the refrigerator and the washer and dryer.
Yeah.
You'd end up probably having to go to a magistrate and claim, file a claim for failure to return property.
Okay.
Where you would have to convince the magistrate that this property was yours, and now the other side will not give it to you.
Okay. So like you said, only domestic court applies to married couples.
When it comes to dividing property.
One
of the other big things is you're not entitled to alimony or post-separation support when you've only been living together. And so I can't tell you how many times somebody has come into this office over the 25 years I've been doing this, and they live together 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and the woman in the relationship has never worked. She has stayed home. She has raised kids. She is there. She is 100% dependent on her boyfriend.
Partner.
And I can't get her any post-separation alimony. If there's children, I can get her child support.
Yeah.
But I can't get her any support above that, and child support is not going to get your bills paid.
No.
It's just not.
No.
It'll help a little bit,
yeah.
But it's not going to get your bills paid.
No.
And so that is, and that's a unique situation as well. But you're not married, so you're not entitled to. That boyfriend has no legal duty to help keep you in the manner to which you became accustomed, even though you may have been together 20 years because you were not married.
Yep. There's no legal document saying he needs to. So.
Right.
Yeah. So you already answered this one about there's no such thing, at least in North Carolina, as common law marriage.
Correct.
So what about like shared finances when they break up? Like if they have a shared bank account? or stuff like that.
Right. Well, if they have a shared bank account, then they should just divide the bank account when they separate, whatever the day of separation, whatever shared accounts they have, they should just divide them in half at the time that they are separating.
So equally, not equitably.
Right. That's exactly right. They should just be divided equally because you're both owners of the account.
Got
and
it.
so you can't say that, well, $10,000 of the 15 in that checking account belongs to me because I make more money. We're both owners of the account. Our money is commingled. It's been my experience that very few couples that live together actually commingle their money. Some do, but that is the rare occurrence.
Yeah.
What they normally do is they decide who's going to pay what bill. So the man may pay the rent and the wife pays the power bill, and then the man may pay the cell phone bill and the wife may pay the cable bill.
Got it.
You know,
Yeah.
Same thing with the trash and stuff like that. That's how most couples do it. I mean, you can do it however you want to do it, but that's what I have seen over the years is that they are paying individual bills that belong to both of them as they go through. As for the bigger purchases, they may agree to do them together. But again, it's going to be how it's titled.
Yeah.
And so, I think that's important, and this is where credit comes in, right? Some people's credit isn't good. So all the cars are in the boyfriend's name. And then you break up and the girl and those cars belong to the boyfriend. I don't care who's been driving them. Yeah. And I don't care if the girlfriend's been making the payment. If the loan on the car is in the boyfriend's name and the boyfriend has the title, the title is going to be his. I mean, that's his car.
Yeah.
And so, now sometimes cars are upside down and that's a good thing for girlfriend to not have to take that. But I'm serious. Like these are the things. But one thing you can do, because I'm talking about all the problems with doing this. Yeah. One thing you can do is you can do a cohabitation agreement.
Okay.
If you're going to live together for a long period of time, if you're going to commingle funds, if you're going to buy things or whatever, you can do a cohabitation agreement, which kind of acts like a prenuptial agreement.
Okay.
If you were, a prenuptial agreement is an agreement where you agree on how the property is going to be divided. If and when you ever divorce, you enter those prior to you getting married.
Yep.
They state what will be marital, what will be separate after you get married, and what happens in the event of divorce.
Yes.
A cohabitation agreement.
You can only get a prenuptial agreement if you're going to get married.
Right, because a prenuptial agreement only takes effect if you get married, because the consideration, i.e. the money, the thing that makes the contract binding is the marriage itself.
Got it.
In North Carolina on a prenuptial agreement. But you can do a cohabitation agreement, which you can do it before you start cohabitating, or you can do it after. And of course, after you're married, if you want to do a property agreement because it might not work out, but you don't want to separate, you can do a postnuptial agreement, which is basically a prenup after you get married, a postnuptial agreement. These cohabitation agreements are often more like postnuptial agreements because we end up making them oftentimes after the people are already living together and they've decided, okay, we're going to go buy this house. We're going to buy this piece of property. We're going to buy this timeshare. Bigger decisions that are longer term. And in those situations, you can contract as to what is going to happen to these properties, to this timeshare, to this house, to this car if you buy it together, if we end up separating down the road. And that can give people peace of mind as well and provide protection to both parties if they choose to do that.
So going back to the boyfriend and girlfriend car thing and credit, like you were saying, there's some people who just don't have great credit. So the boyfriend buys the car on his credit, the title is in his name. But if they have a cohabitation agreement, that includes that car that says, when they break up, he keeps the car that he's driving and she keeps the car that she's driving, even though they're both in the boyfriend's name.
Correct.
That's one way to kind of protect yourself from
still
being able to use the good credit.
Correct. Right.
Protecting everybody.
Right. And the other thing is we can do a quote unquote separation agreement after you separate and you were living together. Okay. We do those just like we do cohabitation agreements as to what we're going to do while you're living together. If you break up and you don't have an agreement, we can negotiate. It's not really a separation agreement because we're not the consideration for a separation agreement is the marriage comes to an end
Yes.
and they're no longer living together and they're not going to move forward. But we can do something that looks just like a separation agreement that says what is going to happen to these properties. And we've done those over the years with houses and motorcycles and all of this stuff, how to get your property back if it's kind of a contentious separation. So, we can help you negotiate one of those as well. Now, we can't take the other party to court and sue them in domestic court.
No.
But we can work stuff out. We can sort of threaten to go to magistrate court and start getting into, a trial with the magistrate on whose property it really is. We can threaten to file a petition to partition the joint house. And if it gets auctioned, whatever equity is probably going to be gone because the person buying into the auction is going to try to only pay what's owed on the mortgage because they're going to try to flip it.
Yep.
And so there's money that both of them would lose. I mean, so there's a lot of different things you can do, but you can do a separation agreement even if you weren't married. It's still a contract. People can contract for just about anything, Raina. And so we can come up with a contract as what's going to happen to this property, these animals.
Oh,
that's often common.
That's a big deal.
Right. Dogs. Who's going to get the dog? Who's going to get the cat? Stuff like that. So you do have options, even if you don't have a cohabitation agreement, even if you don't do these things, even when you're separate, we can still try to work something out and get everybody on the same page.
Okay.
Have family law questions? Need guidance to navigate legal challenges? The compassionate team at Breeden Law Office is here to help. Visit us at www.breedenfirm.com for practical advice, resources, or to book a consultation. Remember, when life gets messy, you don't have to face it alone.
And you've said, magistrate and magistrate court a couple of times. In layman's terms, is that small claims court?
That's small claims court.
Okay.
Correct.
So just for people watching, most people know the term small claims court.
Correct.
I just wanted to make sure they knew that was the same thing.
Right. Yeah. Small claims court is where, and the claim ends up being failure to return property.
Yeah.
Where you're saying, I own this property and this person will not return it.
Yes.
And then you have to prove to the magistrate that you do own it and that they are unlawfully withholding it.
Yes.
And small claims court.
Got it. Okay. And last question, and I know this is a big question, and we might need to do a whole nother episode on it. But if unmarried couples have children together, how does that affect custody and child support?
It has really no effect on custody and child support.
Okay.
I don't know what percentage of kids are born outside of wedlock, but it's close to half.
It's a lot.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It could be more than half. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But it's a substantial number.
Yes.
Let's put it that way. Depending on where you are in the country, it moves around. But it really has no effect on custody or child support. Custody is designed to determine what is in the best interest of the child, and child support is determined as to what is needed to support that child. If you have a child, married or not, you have a legal obligation to support that child until they're 18 years old or out of high school, or a couple other things maybe go longer, but as a general rule, that's for most people.
Yeah.
But if you're not on the birth certificate, that's a big deal.
Okay.
And
how's
so some unmarried people have children, and the father is not on the birth certificate.
It can't be the mom.
No, it can't be the mother. No, the father is not on the birth certificate.
Yeah.
Right. And so if you're in that situation and you're separating and you're not on the birth certificate, you're going to need to file an action with the court to say, you can file a paternity action or a legitimation action, both of which will allow you to establish legal rights to that child. Both of them, if the mom won't just consent, lead to a DNA test. Yep. And then the court or the clerk, the legitimation is in front of the clerk, paternity is in front of a judge. They kind of do the same thing. They're a little different. We don't have time to get into the differences today, but they will recognize you as that child's legal father and grant you all the legal rights that comes with a father that would be on a birth certificate. And in some of the situations, will actually enter an order that you get placed on the birth certificate, even if the mother disagrees. If you're not on the birth certificate and you're not married, that's a problem.
Yeah.
And your rights, they're not none, but they're extremely limited.
Yeah.
If the mother is hell-bent that you're not going to be involved, see the child, those types of things.
Yeah.
But if the mother wants to get child support from you, then they're going to have to establish paternity and determine that you are the father of the child. And then that is going to then convey to you some parental rights. Now, you're going to have to, if you're not getting along with that parent, you're going to have to file a custody action, go to custody court, get visitation, get full custody of the child, whatever you need to do.
Because child support court and custody court,
two different things. Child support court, custody court, two different things. Just because you're paying child support doesn't grant you any custody.
Right.
And just because you have custody doesn't
mean you have to pay child support.
Mean you have to pay child support. Right. So they are completely separate. And you don't have to have custody of a child to obtain child support. You could be anybody who has a child in North Carolina in their custody that's living with them, whether they have custody or not, neighbors, family, friends, friends of friends, parents, anybody who has a child in North Carolina can go and ask for child support and say, this child is residing with me. I am providing care, shelter, and food for this child. I need child support. And the parents would have to pay that person child support.
Oh, okay.
So those are other episodes.
I did not know that.
Yeah, we've talked about it on some previous episodes. But these are things that you run into in unmarried situations all the time. And if you have some thought that you're not the father of the child,
that was going to be my next
question. Time to do it is at separation. Go ahead. If you're not on the birth certificate, maybe file your own paternity action and see if you can find out. You know what I mean? If child support has filed a paternity action against you because they want you to pay child support, you need to ask for a paternity test before the court orders you to pay child support, because in that order, they're going to establish you as the father and they're going to find you to be the father, and you're going to owe this child support. So if there's any questions as to whether you are the father or not, you need to ask for that paternity test as soon as child support enforcement contacts you, or as soon as you separate, if you have any questions about it moving forward. Because once you're found to be the father by the court, it's going to be hard. And, look, random people sign birth certificates and they're not the fathers too.
I was going to ask about
that. Right. And we'll probably at some point in the future do an episode on that. But you can get off that birth certificate if the child's not yours as well. Okay. If you file this, used not to. That's just in the last 10 or 12 years. When I started practicing law, your birth certificate, you were stuck. Now you can file a motion with the court and say, based on some sort of fraud, you were misled to believe that you were the father of the child, and you can ask the court to have paternity DNA testing to determine whether you are the father. And if you're not the father, they will remove you from the birth certificate. And that really is in the last 15 years.
Oh, wow.
And so we've done those cases too. So there's different ways to go about doing it. But yeah, but just, I know I started by saying you don't have any rights as an unmarried couple. You don't have marital rights, but you still have all the regular legal rights as an adult who owns property, who would be the parent of a child that you would have otherwise. Yeah. The court just isn't going to divide the property, and the court is not going to award alimony or post-separation support for you to help you pay your bills, because you can't pay your bills on your own because you don't make enough money. Yeah. But everything else, custody, child support, that all is basically the same. The court doesn't really care whether you're married or not. I mean, they're just going to do what they think is best for the child.
Gotcha. And the property, like you said, the property division is a little bit different, takes place in a different court, but you still have rights to your property.
Right. If you can prove that it is your property, and that when things get commingled can be different. I would encourage anybody listening to this, if you are living in a long-term relationship and you're not planning on getting married, you should get a cohabitation agreement that says what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. And that just protects everybody. I'm not saying it is very, very important, because I've seen so many people be financially ruined coming out of these long-term relationships where they dated, lived together for 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years. And oftentimes nothing is in the female's name. The female often earns less money, and they are often don't have the power in the relationship. And they come out of these things and they might have a car. Yeah. Right. They might have a car, and that's it. Yeah. And I do what I can, but
it's limited.
But it's tough to look at oftentimes a woman, I've seen it happen to a couple men, but oftentimes it's a woman in her early 50s and say, you have nothing.
You helped build this life.
You helped build this life. You lived in that house.
Now you have nothing.
You allowed him to help him pay that mortgage, and you added the fence and all that stuff, but your name's not on the house and you have nothing.
And
so that is, that's important. Right. And so And if you've gotten, and if you're, and look, and if it's a second marriage and you're moving into his house that him and his wife has, make sure he adds your name to the deed.
Yes.
Right. And, I know we're talking about unmarried couples, but if you're a married couple and you're living in a house and your name's on the deed, you need to get your name added to the deed so that is your house.
Marital property now.
Marital property, your house, your title of the equity, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So
and I know
that's important.
I know that, like, obviously working in family law and talking to people, things like prenuptial agreements and what cohabitation agreements, there's a stigma, right? Like, oh, it's bad luck, or, oh, you're thinking about getting divorced, we are not even married yet, or you're thinking about breaking up, we're still together. It's not bad. There's nothing bad about it, because if you don't get divorced and you don't break up, then it doesn't matter. It's completely irrelevant. But if you do, it's there to protect everybody.
Correct. It absolutely is. It absolutely is. And that's why I think they're important to have, particularly if you're going to be making, this is a long-term cohabitation relationship, and you're going to be making what would be long-term financial decisions, like buying a house, paying a house off, buying rental property, buying land, building a house at the beach, all of these things that help build wealth, because they're good investments and you can use them and all that stuff. If you're going to be doing anything like that as a non-married couple, you absolutely need a cohabitation agreement.
I agree. I think they should definitely be more standard than they are.
Correct. 100%. So anyway, well, we'd like to thank Raina Birch for coming on and asking us these questions about the legal rights of unmarried people when they separate. If you have any questions about what you heard here today or your unique situation, feel free to reach out to us here at the Breeden Law Office at 919-661-4970. We'd be glad to get you in, sit down, talk to you about what your rights are or are not in a situation where you may be coming out of a relationship or thinking about coming out of a relationship where you have not been married, but there is property and assets involved. As we do at the end of every episode, we'd like to ask you to like, follow, subscribe to this podcast wherever you're seeing it, whether it be on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram. We also like to ask you to tag the Best of Johnston County Podcast in your Instagram story so we can raise our profile so more people will know about the Best of Johnston County Podcast. The Best of Johnston County Podcast comes out every single Monday, so be listening back next Monday for another great guest that will tell you what they love about Johnston County and what makes Johnston County such a special place to live. Until next time, I'm your host, Jonathan Breeden.
That's the end of today's episode of Best of Johnston County, a show brought to you by the trusted team at Breeden Law Office. We thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to sharing more interesting facets of this community next week. Every story, every viewpoint adds another thread to the rich tapestry of Johnston County. If the legal aspects highlighted raise some questions, help is just around the corner at www.breedenfirm.com.